Hey, everybody, I am Dan Davidson.
And I am Bill Smith, and it's time for the news from TrekNews.net. Sorry. You got me already, and I haven't even started. Spanning the Alpha Quadrant. For all the news on all the Star Treks, yo. It's TrekNews.net.
See, it's only to make you laugh.
Online at TrekNews.net. Welcome to the news from TrekNews.net, the oldest brand new Star Trek news podcast from Trek Geeks for the week of October 8th, 2020. Woo. Cruising through the year, buddy. First up, our friends over at Trek Movie recently had an in-depth discussion with Jonathan Frakes, former Trek Geeks podcast guest, about the world of Star Trek, and a couple of interesting things about Star Trek films came up.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of information about interview subjects over there, but when is an interview with Jonathan Frakes not interesting? Right?
Fair.
I mean, indeed, a variety of topics came up in the interview, but a couple really stood out to me. First of all, when asked if Emma Watts called you and said, quote, Jonathan, you directed 2 movies, you know the franchise, I got all these scripts, what should I do, end quote, what would you say? And Frakes responded, quote, I say greenlight the Tarantino and Noah Hawley ones, if they're lucky enough to get either of them, and if they're not too busy to direct, I'll be available. End quote. Now, that's pretty cool. So when he was pressed about the Chris Hemsworth movie that's rumored to be the front runner right now, Frakes said, quote, well, that's probably the one that has the most hope of being made. First, because there's already an audience. After Paramount shut down Star Trek for 5 years, J.J. Abrams relaunched it, and in my taste, very successfully. They spent a lot of effing money, so it was a big movie. His first one, in particular, was great. I wasn't crazy about Idris Elba wearing a mask, and I love Benedict Cumberbatch as Khan, and I love that cast. So in my opinion, is that the movie with JJ's cast is the one, if I were betting, that would be greenlit, end quote. Dude, I loved hearing his thoughts about the Kelvin Timeline movies. That was fantastic.
It's amazing that they're clearly paying him off to love Star Trek. No, I'm kidding. It codifies and emphasizes the fact that all of this stuff, which fandom generally loves, for the most part. I mean, there are movies we all love and hate.
Yep.
The Champion Rule in full effect.
Right.
Is Star Trek. And clearly, Frakes has watched them all.
Yeah.
And if I keep coming back to this. I said the same thing about Nimoy. I'll say the same thing about Frakes. If he can watch these and go, yep, that's some pretty good Star Trek, then why can't it be pretty good Star Trek?
It is pretty good Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Champion Rule, yes, but it is good Star Trek. Period. End stop, or whatever the hell the phrase.
End of sentence.
End of sentence, whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's hard for you because you don't normally speak in full sentences. Wow.
Gotcha.
So you got me twice today. Clearly, I should just pack up and go home. Oh, wait, I'm already here.
There you go.
Been here for 7 months.
Mask up, buddy.
Oh, yeah. I wish you would just to cover that face.
Really.
Eesh. Well, Dan, next up, we, as a standard rule, we don't discuss politics on Trek Geeks. Partly because we don't want it, and mainly because our audience doesn't want it.
Right. But
this story is just so important, and it's too important to ignore. And besides, it involves a whole bunch of Star Trek alumni, so it's worth reporting.
Yeah, it really is. As many of you know, Election Day in the United States is less than a month away as we record, and a whole bunch of Trek actors recently got together to promote Trek the Vote. Now, this new group launched last week with the stated goal of Trekkies organizing for fair and ethical elections. Many Star Trek actors reprised their roles, in quotes, to bring a message to Earth from the future, to send out a call to action from Starfleet to help in the 2020 election. This Trek the Vote intro video includes Gate McFadden as Dr. Beverly Crusher, Will Wheaton as Wesley Crusher, John Billingsley as Dr. Phlox, Armin Shimmerman as Quark, Kitty Swink as, she's been actually a guest star in several episodes of Trek, Hannah Hattay as Molly O'Brien, Robin Curtis as Lieutenant Savick, Andrew Robinson as Elam Garrick, J.G. Hertzler as Martok, and Chase Masterson as Lita. Also appearing in this video is DS9 showrunner Ira Steven Bear. Now, Seattle filmmaker, musician, and activist, and also lifelong Star Trek fan, Tay Phoenix says that the goal is to, quote, help Trekkies find their lane in volunteering to support election integrity with a variety of different nonpartisan partners, end quote. And if you want more information or to sign up to assist, head on over to TrekThe.vote. Now, we do want to point out this is not the same Trek the Vote that has been making news recently that is endorsing Joe Biden as president and is going to be having a fundraiser of some sort in the coming days, which is going to involve some Star Trek actors. This is a totally separate one. And we felt that because of this message of a fair and ethical elections, we thought it was one that we should share here on the news this week.
Yeah, and in fact, they're drawing the distinction between the two in social media now. The one that the one we're reporting on is Trek the Vote for Fair Elections, and the other one is Trek the Vote to Victory. Specifically the Biden-Harris effort with people like Patrick Stewart and a whole bunch of others. So, no, I think this is very important. Free and fair elections are important to any democratic nation, as they are to the United States. And we hope that as many people out there get out and vote. We're not going to tell anyone who to vote for. Our particular preferences are known, although they do not speak for, nor are they representative of the Trek Geeks podcast network necessarily. It's not up to us to tell you what to do with a ballot. So the only thing we hope is that you will get out there and vote. There are nonpartisan groups out there trying to ensure as many fair elections in states as possible. And if you want to volunteer for that, there's plenty of information out there at TrekThe.vote.
And I got to say, whether or not you're interested in doing anything or whether you agree or not with what's going on, check out the video because it really is amazing. All of these actors are at home, of course, because of the pandemic. It's amazing listening to them get into their character instantly. Especially, I think of John Billingsley right away. We've all heard him talk outside of the character, but he is Phlox in this video. The enunciation and the inflection is so exactly what we remember from Enterprise. Everybody's the same. J.G. Hertzler was another one that really struck me as right in character. So they do a great job reprising those roles. Absolutely, they do. It's because they're the best, man. They really are. Yeah. And finally, Dan, speaking of Trek movies from a couple of stories ago, Zachary Quinto was recently making the rounds to promote his latest films, and as always, the subject of Star Trek came up in the discussions. You gotta wonder if they ever get sick of that. I can't imagine that they do, but it's always the case. While promoting his new Netflix film, The Boys in the Band, while being a guest on CBS's The Talk last week, he was asked if he was interested in returning for a fourth film as Spock in the Kelvin timeline. Absolutely, he said. Quote, "We talk about it all the time as the crew of the Enterprise. We are all incredibly good friends in real life. All of us welcome the opportunity to go back and keep telling those stories," end quote. But he went on to say he has no idea what the status of a new Star Trek movie actually is, and he seemed to indicate that maybe there's too much Star Trek happening these days. Quote, "It seems like a bit of a saturated market at this point, so I'm not sure what the plans are for the feature film versions of the franchise, but we are all here if they want to beam us up," end quote. So when you come right down to it, buddy, nothing new to report. Shut up, Quinto. We want more Star Trek. Yeah, Come on. Do. All the time. If ever there was a market that could support it, I think it's now. Especially with, so many series in production. I think if they came up with a way to tie in some films or even had some standalone films, I think that would be amazing. But I am all for more Trek in general. I'm all for more Trek. I'm all for another Kelvin timeline Trek. I love the Kelvin timeline. We talked about it earlier. So yeah, bring it on. Bring on the Kelvin timeline, baby. A couple of housekeeping items before we bid adieu for this week. Yeah. New York Comic-Con virtual metaverse is this week. Tomorrow or today as this drops. And there are going to be some special announcements and surprises in the Star Trek content. So check out the NYCC YouTube channel for that. And of course, the season 3 premiere of Star Trek Discovery is now 8 days away, Dan. You know what that means? No, what does it mean? that in 8 days we'll be watching Discovery. No, that means discovering Trek back on Discovery in 10 days.
Yeah, thereabouts. Regular season coverage of Star Trek Discovery begins on Discovering Trek October 19th, I believe the date is.
Wow.
I think that's the Monday. Yes, it is. So that's all for the news from TrekNews.net for the week of October 8th. Remember, for all the news on all the Star Trek, please visit our great friends at TrekNews.net. Have a great week, everyone. Live long and prosper.
Coconut.